Today I'm taking my first step toward growing my own food. I'm going to build a elevated raised bed garden. The sides are going to be 3 of these cedar boards high all the way around. These are 5.5 inches wide. So 3 together should give me about 16.5 inches. And that's just about perfect what it is. So why these sides later? Every one of these boards has what's called dog-eared. I wanted to use cedar for the material, but cedar is very expensive. And these are actually cedar, but they're sold as Cedar Pickets. And they're 6 foot tall, and they all have the dog ear, be the top of the picket fence. And they're also very rough cut. I don't know if you can really see that in the camera, but this is a very rough surface. So they're much less expensive than regular cedar plank. I went to Home Depot 2 weeks ago and bought all my materials, and they've been sitting out here ever since. When you build anything out of wood, it's best to put the wood in the area where you're going to build your project for at least a week, and preferably 2 weeks before you build it. And what that does is it allows all the wood to come to the same amount of moisture absorption. Wood expands and contracts according to its dryness. So to get everything the same amount of dryness when you build your projects, expansion or contraction, everything moves at the same time. You don't get problems because one board is moving at a different rate than another. So the first thing we're going to do here is cut off the dog ears for the sides. And these 6 pieces are going to be the long sides. So I set up my miter saw here. If you don't have a miter saw, in my opinion, it's the #1 stationary power tool that you should buy. It's very versatile, makes a lot of projects a lot easier. Okay, now I'm ready to do the rest. I'm using the wall as my stop, and I have a piece of wood clamp to raise it up so that this is level all the way across while it's being cut. Okay, that's all the planks for the long side, and we need to do 3 more short sides. And we only need to do 3 because we're going to cut them in half. So the short side will be half the length of the long side. Okay, now we've got our pieces cut for our shorter sides. And the first thing to do is find out what length they are now. So I'm getting 70 3/4 inches. So if we made these cuts at 35, we'd have room to spare. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the shorter sides 35 inches. And this doesn't have to be exact because I'm going to make them all the same, and I've got plenty of material. I have my miter saw set up now to make this cut at 35 inch, and I'm going to clamp it down like I did before. So as you can see, I have these square corners, both ends, nice cut. So all these for the sides will be the same. I'm going to continue to cut these others here. So we have the long sides and the short sides cut. When I went to Home Depot, I got a 4x4 Douglas fir beam, 12 foot long, and I had them cut it down to 4 pieces. And these 4 pieces will be the height of the raised bed garden. And for the few minutes it took to get Home Depot to cut them down, it made it possible for me to bring it home in the trunk of my car, and it saved me an enormous amount of time. I don't have a tool that can cut a 4x4 easily. Okay, it's time to get on with the next phase of our project here. I've already aligned this top piece. Now the wood is fairly damp. We had snow a couple days ago, and so the wood is pretty damp, and that's why the sawdust clings to the countersink. And that's why I just tap it here on the end to get rid of that sawdust. Okay, that's very secure. The plank lines up with the edge of this 4x4, both on the top and on the side. And I'm going to go to the other end and do the same thing. Screw holes here. So now that the first plank is in place, the next two become very easy to line up. Okay, everything's in place. Screw a few holes in for this. Okay, before I do anything else, I'm going to flip this over for a moment. Okay, these pieces of 1x2 material are called furring strips, and they are just general all-purpose materials that you need sometimes, and they have a variety of uses. What we're going to do right now is we're going to create a lip on the inside here for the slats that'll go in the bottom to support the material, the dirt, the soil, everything that's going to go inside. So the first thing I want to do is just lay this out, measure the distance, and this can be very rough. Okay, so we have our first long side done. I'm just going to slide that off of here. I have clamped the far side to my workbench to hold it upright, and then I clamped one of the side pieces here. I'm going to adjust that a little, and I turned one of my clamps around so I could use it to raise up the end, and then I brought the other side over, and now we have this clamp, and it's pretty close. I'm just going to fine tune it a little bit. So I'm going to get the first one just roughly in place, and then I'm going to grab my clamp and I'll do the other end. Okay, we've completed our basic box. It's going to be the raised bed garden, and this is relatively small. I think it's going to be enough area that I can grow more veggies than I can eat. So we will see as this project continues through the next couple of months. But cut a stack of slats for the bottom of the raised bed. So now let's get on with the next part of this project, and that is to put a floor in this box. And like I said, I cut a bunch of slots, but on the two end slots I notched them so they fit around the 4x4 somewhat. Not totally. It doesn't totally close it off, but it does made it possible for me to get 12 planks in, because it was going to be like 11 and a half planks, and I wanted to make sure I could get 12 in. So I notched the two ends, and you can see the other end up here. And now I'm just going to lay these in. Okay, everything is in place now, and it doesn't totally fill the bottom. I do have a slight gap in the middle. And there's several ways I could secure the slats to make sure they stay in place. But what I decided to do was to screw them in from the outside. And this will make the whole structure stronger. So the first step was to put a piece of furring strip, clamp it to the bottom here so it's flush with the furring strip on the inside. And then I just come along with a pencil and mark the line. And then after that, I came along with a piece of scrap, and all I had to do was follow along the. And now I know exactly where the slats are inside, the height. And the next step was to just eyeball the center of one of these slats so I know where it is. And I put a mark, and then this is the correct width. This is just a scrap 5.5 inches. So I use this to mark the center of every one of these after that. And so now I know where the centers are, I know the height, and I can just come from the outside and drill and screw and put some screws in there to hold it. And I'm not going to do that on camera. I'll do that afterwards because there's you don't need to watch me drive screws. So at this point, the basic box is done, and the next step will be to install a self-ordering system. And I'm going to do that in a separate video, and I will put a link below in the description for that video. And so that completes this for now. And again, I'll give you links, and I'll also give you links to everything I used. So if you have any interest in any of these items like the miter saw or the clamps or anything else, you know exactly what I used, and that could be a good starting point for what to look for. So thank you for your time, and see you in the next video.